It is a little after 7 in the evening. You open the refrigerator and there it is. Last night's dinner, still on the plate, waiting for you. You are not going to throw it out. You were raised better than that. So you slide it into the microwave, press the button, and 90 seconds later, you have supper. You have done this 1,000 times. And most of those 1,000 times, you did one small thing without a second thought. One small thing that put a quiet, repeated load on the single organ in your body that never once told you it was struggling. Here is the honest version, and I am not going to dress it up. If you are past 60 and you reheat leftovers a few times a week, and almost everyone does, there is a very good chance you are making at least 2 of the 5 mistakes I am about to walk you through. Not because you are careless, because no one ever sat you down and explained the chemistry. The standard 15-minute appointment does not have room for this conversation. So let me give you the time it actually needs. By the end, you will know exactly which reheating habits matter, which one is a myth you can stop worrying about tonight, and the simple changes that take the pressure off. Stay with me. The one most people get wrong is not the one you would guess. First, let me tell you who we are protecting here, because most people are a little fuzzy on it. Your pancreas is a soft, quiet organ tucked behind your stomach, and it holds down 2 enormous jobs at once. It makes the enzymes that break your food down so your body can use it, and it makes insulin, the hormone that keeps your blood sugar steady after every meal. Digestion on one side, blood sugar on the other, both running through the same small organ. Now here is the part that matters for you specifically. Your pancreas almost never complains. It does not ache the way a bad knee aches. It does not cramp or send up a clear warning light. It works the night shift, every night, and it never knocks on your door. That silence is exactly why the slow, low-grade strain we are talking about slips past so many people for years. And research suggests that the same organ, worn down quietly over time, sits right at the center of 2 things nobody over 60 wants: sluggish digestion and a rising risk of type 2 diabetes. You cannot feel it happening. That is the whole problem. So the smartest thing you can do is simply hand it less to deal with. And a surprising amount of that comes down to how you treat last night's food. Let us start with the mistake that surprises people the most, because it feels thrifty and sensible. You take last night's fried food, the chicken, the fries, the leftover cutlet, and instead of just warming it, you drop it back into a pan with a little fresh oil to bring the crisp back. Or you refry it. It tastes wonderful. And right at that moment, you have restarted a chemical process. The everyday oils in your kitchen are simply not built to survive twice. Here's what is happening. The common cooking oils most of us keep on the shelf, sunflower, corn, soybean, are high in what are called polyunsaturated fats, a type of fat with a delicate structure that reacts easily with oxygen under heat. Think of it like a rope pulled across the same sharp edge over and over. The first pull frays it a little. The second pull frays it more. Reheat those oils and they break down further, releasing a family of reactive compounds, including 2 that chemists track by the names 4-hydroxynonenal and malondialdehyde. You do not need to memorize those. You only need to know what they do. They raise the oxidative load on your body, the everyday wear and tear stress that your organs then have to mop up. Why does your pancreas care? Because that mopping up is an inflammatory job, and your pancreas does delicate, precise work. Asking it to keep making clean enzyme and insulin signals inside a low-grade inflammatory haze, a few times a week for years, is asking it to do careful work in a room that is always a little smoky. And you might already notice small hints. A dull, heavy feeling high in your belly after a meal that you write off as eating too much. A wave of tiredness right after you eat. Sometimes that really is just a big dinner. Sometimes it is worth paying attention to. This is not rare. A common pattern is someone in their 60s who hates waste, recrisps the previous night's fried dinner in an oily skillet 2 or 3 evenings a week, and quietly mentions that same after-dinner heaviness that never quite becomes a problem and never quite goes away. The fix could not be simpler, and it costs you nothing. Do not reheat fried food in oil. Not fresh oil, not yesterday's oil. If you want the crunch back, dry heat is your friend. A regular oven at around 350 degrees or an air fryer brings the crispness right back without creating a single new drop of that chemical stress. and treat frying oil as one-time use. Fry today, pour it out today. Now the second mistake, and this is the one I most want you to hear, because it is the best documented danger on this whole list, and almost nobody is told about it. It hides in something in kitchens all over the world, a pot of leftover rice. You cook a big batch on Sunday. It is easier that way, and you reheat a portion each day. Reasonable. But from the moment that rice cools on the counter, something biological begins that your senses cannot catch. Let me introduce a bacterium called Bacillus cereus. It rides along in raw rice from just about any store, anywhere. Cooking kills the active bacteria, but it does not kill the spores. A spore is a tough little survival capsule, like a seed that boiling water simply cannot burn. Those seeds sit quietly in your perfectly cooked rice, waiting for the temperature to drop into the range they love, which happens to be right about the temperature of your kitchen counter as the rice cools. Once it cools and sits too long, those spores wake up, multiply, and produce a toxin. And here is the detail that matters most. That toxin, called cerealide, is heat stable. It survives temperatures well above boiling, up to around 250 degrees Fahrenheit. So the next day, when you microwave that rice, you do kill the living bacteria, but the toxin they already made sails straight through the reheating fully intact and lands on your plate. Your microwave shut the factory down. The barrels it already filled are still on the shelf. I want to be honest about how serious this can get, because it is not just an upset stomach. The Centers for Disease Control estimates Bacillus cereus is behind roughly 63,000 cases of food poisoning in the United States each year, and most go unreported because they are mild. But in rarer documented cases, it is severe. A published medical case series described 5 previously healthy adults who developed serious illness after eating fried rice heavily contaminated with this bacterium, and the worst case progressed to acute liver failure. That is not a scare tactic, that is the record. And where does your pancreas come in? Repeated small exposures, even the mild ones that never send you to bed, can keep your gut in a state of low-grade irritation. Your gut and your pancreas are close neighbors. They share blood supply and inflammatory signaling, and a gut that stays quietly irritated tends to pass those signals along. This one is all about timing, and the fixes are easy. Cool cooked rice within about 1 hour. Spread it thin on a wide plate instead of leaving it in a tall, warm heap, so it cools fast and gives those spores less time to switch on. Keep it no longer than a day. When you reheat, heat it until it is steaming all the way through and finish that portion. Do not send it back to the fridge for a third round. You and I both know your last appointment did not sound like this. If you want more of it, subscribe and tap like. That is the whole engine that keeps this going. The third mistake shows up in millions of kitchens at lunchtime, and the danger is not the food itself. It is one quirk of the most common appliance you own. You reheat a couple of pieces of chicken from last night. 2 minutes in the microwave. You touch the outside, it is hot, so you assume it is done all the way through. Right there, in that hot on the outside, so it must be safe logic, is where the trouble hides. A microwave does not heat food the way an oven does. It excites the water molecules inside the food, and those molecules make heat on their own. But different parts of one piece of chicken hold different amounts of water and fat. So some spots get hot enough to be safe, while others, sometimes an inch away, stay cool. Picture a field at midday. Some patches sit in full sun, others sit in the shade of a tree. From above, it all looks like one field. Inside your microwave, those shady patches are called cold zones, and you cannot see or feel them. The outside can be scalding, while a pocket inside sits at exactly the temperature bacteria are happiest. Now, I want to be fair and precise here, because this is where a lot of internet warnings overstate things. If your chicken was properly cooked the first time, the dangerous bacteria were already killed. The real risk is not reheating on its own. It is chicken that was stored too long, cooled too slowly, or recontaminated after cooking, by a hand, a cutting board, a shared spoon, and then reheated unevenly so a cold zone lets anything present survive. 2 bugs make this worth respecting with poultry, Salmonella, and Campylobacter, both common in raw chicken. A cold zone is a warm, moist, protein-rich pocket. That is not where bacteria die. That is where they are comfortable. A single bad episode is miserable. But what concerns me more for someone over 60 is the quiet version. The small, repeated, low-level exposures, too mild to knock you flat, the kind that keep your gut smoldering and, over years, keep nudging that inflammatory signal toward your pancreas. A common scenario is someone who microwaves leftover chicken at their desk most days because it is fast, never gets sick enough to stay home, and never connects the two. So, handle it simply. The oven is the safe bet. Around 350 degrees, cover the chicken with foil, give it 15 to 20 minutes, and the trapped moist heat reaches every part evenly. No cold zones. If you must use the microwave, cut the chicken into small, even pieces. Use medium power instead of full blast, stop halfway to stir, and let it rest covered for 2 full minutes afterward so the heat evens out. Or skip the whole issue and eat it cold, pulled into a salad. Cold chicken carries no reheating risk at all. The fourth mistake carries a double hit, which is why I saved it for near the end. Roasted or fried potatoes from a couple of days ago. Golden, crisp, and you toss them back into a hot oiled pan to bring that crust back to life. Two separate things are happening inside those potatoes at once, and both land on the same organ. The first is a compound called acrylamide. It forms in starchy foods when they are cooked at high heat, as part of the same browning reaction that gives you that delicious golden crust. The International Agency for Research on Cancer classifies acrylamide as a probable human carcinogen, meaning it is on the watch list of compounds worth keeping low in your diet. And here is what makes reheated potatoes worse than fresh ones. After the first cooking and cooling, the surface dries and the sugars concentrate, so blasting it with high heat a second time creates even more favorable conditions to form acrylamide. Fresh potato fried once and cooked potato fried twice are simply not the same food. The second hit is quieter, and it works on your blood sugar directly. When a cooked potato fully cools in the fridge, something genuinely useful happens. Part of its ordinary starch reorganizes into what is called resistant starch, a form your body digests slowly, so it raises your blood sugar more gently. Cooling, in effect, rewrites the potato into a slower fuel. Now, I want to be accurate, because the internet oversells this next part. Reheating does not erase all of that benefit. Research shows a good share of resistant starch is heat stable and survives warming. But for potatoes specifically, high heat reheating does undo a meaningful portion of it, tearing part of that slower page back out, so the glucose hit lands faster than it would have if you had eaten them cold. And who deals with a faster glucose hit? Your pancreas, and specifically the cells that make insulin. Once in a while, a sharp spike is completely fine. That is what they are built for. But research suggests that sharp, repeated glucose spikes several times a week for years are associated with the kind of insulin strain that can raise long-term diabetes risk, especially as recovery capacity naturally slows with age. So, the honest concern with Recrisped potatoes is not one dramatic event. It is a small tax, paid over and over. The fix is easy, and once you try it, genuinely good. Eat potatoes cold where you can. A cold potato salad with olive oil, a splash of vinegar, and fresh herbs keeps the resistant starch working for you and skips the extra acrylamide entirely. If you want them warm, steam them or use the lowest heat that does the job. Warm, not blazing. And never refry a potato that has already been cooked. Now the fifth food, and this is where I am going to do something the other videos on this topic will not. I'm going to take one off your worry list. You have almost certainly been told in stern tones never to reheat spinach or leafy greens because they turn into cancer-causing compounds. Let me tell you what is actually true, because the honest version is more useful than the scary one. Here is the myth, stated plainly. The claim is that reheating spinach converts its natural nitrates into nitrites and then into nitrosamines, a group of compounds, some of which are linked to cancer. And here is the reality. That conversion does not happen just because you warmed the food. Turning nitrate into nitrite requires bacteria, and bacteria only get to work if the greens were left out too long or stored poorly. If you cool your cooked greens promptly and keep them properly refrigerated, the amount of anything worrying that forms sits far below any level of real concern. This is not just my read. The European Food Information Council actually walked back its old warning against reheating spinach, conceding that with quick cooling and proper storage, the risk is minimal. So the real rule is not never reheat spinach. The real rule is store it right, cool it fast, keep it no more than a day or two, and reheat it once, gently, not blast it on high. Do that, and reheated greens are fine. The lesson underneath all 5 of these is the same, and it is not about fear, it is about handling. Which brings me to the model that ties this whole thing together, because once you see it, you will never need a list again. It was never really about which foods are evil. It is about the conditions you create when food sits and gets reheated. Slow cooling gives toxins time to form. High, dry, repeated heat drives harmful compounds up. Uneven heat leaves safe-looking cold pockets. And repeated fast glucose spikes wear on the same organ that is also mopping up all that low-grade inflammation. Your pancreas sits in the middle of every one of those, quietly absorbing the load. So here is the whole protocol, and it is short. When you open the fridge tonight, run it through this. Fried food gets dry heat in the oven or air fryer, never oil. Rice gets cooled within an hour, spread thin, kept a day at most, reheated until steaming, and finished in one go. Chicken goes in the covered oven or gets eaten cold. And never trust a hot outside on a microwaved piece. Potatoes go cold where you can, or warm gently, and never refried. And greens, the one you were most afraid of, just need fast cooling and a single gentle reheat. What can you expect if you actually do this? In the first week, mostly nothing dramatic, and that is the point. This is prevention, not a rescue. But many people notice within a week or two that the heavy, tired feeling after meals eases, simply because they are no longer eating reheated oil and fast-spiking starch as often. Over a month or two, the real win is invisible and worth more than anything you can feel. A pancreas handed a lighter, cleaner load day after day. Now the part I will not skip, because it matters more than any of the above. These are habits, not diagnoses, and some symptoms need a real doctor, not a fridge rule. If you have persistent pain in your upper belly that bores through to your back, ongoing nausea, unexplained weight loss, yellowing of your skin or eyes, pale or greasy stools, or new and constant fatigue, please do not sort that out at the dinner table. Those can be signs of pancreatic or liver trouble that need proper testing. See a clinician, promptly. And never stop or change any medication based on a video like this one. Bring it to the person who knows your full health picture. One last thing, and then the recap. Everything today is really one idea: lowering the quiet daily load your body carries so it can do its repair work without fighting you. If that idea speaks to you, and you also deal with fluid retention or heavy swollen legs, I put together a simple 30-day starter guide called the Drainage Protocol that walks through the same lighten the load approach for your lymphatic and fluid balance. It is linked in the description if you want it. No pressure. The changes in this video cost nothing and stand on their own. Before you go, do one small thing for me in the comments. Tell me your decade. Are you in your 60s, your 70s, your 80s? After 70, some of these mechanisms shift, and knowing who is actually watching changes which of these habits I focus on next. So drop it below. And if you have been doing every one of these things for years, hear me clearly. It is not too late. Your body's repair systems are genuinely impressive, and low-grade strain can come back down when you stop feeding it. Nothing here is a verdict. It is a starting point, and it takes exactly one different choice the next time you open that refrigerator door. Your pancreas has worked for you every single day, in complete silence, asking for nothing. Maybe tonight is a good night to give a little back.